Let's see if we are connecting. And it says no data, live. Connect your encoder to go live. Excellent. And then that means I go over to the channel and we see if I get echo. Let's look for that echo. All right, we are. And we get echo. No data, thumbs up live. On that. All right, so go live. Let's turn off the voice there. And then tell everyone to hit that upvote. It is a very small act of grace on your part, but it's life and death to Team Dietrich. T-Take Barry says loud and clear, brother, 100. Well, we'll find out soon enough whether we're registering with our dear friend Aristides, who hopefully will join us now that I press the audio call. Let's get that going. All right. And we're within the first minute of the opening hour. Okay, dear Aristides, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm all right.
Okay, let's see if that registers. Say that again.
All right. Am I registering?
You are. Oh, so dear sir, let's thank our lucky stars and our dear friend Mr. T-Take Berry for saying Aristides is crystal clear. All right.
Great.
Great feedback. Are you in a mood to take it away?
It's a question of mood.
Oh, it can be, yeah.
What is it? There's a quote from one of my favorite movies. It's the old Dune movie. It's like mood. It's like moods are things for love play and cattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, that having been articulated. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Right. We're gonna, you do it. Yeah. Not only when you're in the mood. That's what, that's,
understood. Right? Understood.
Because I'm sure you show up a lot of times and you're not in the mood.
Yeah, generally, most of the time I'm not. Yes, exactly. Your point being well taken.
All right.
Yes.
But yes. Shortly, momentarily, I will be prepared to do that. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Of course. Always in the mood for you, Doug. And if not, he put me in the mood.
There we are. Thank you. And now everybody is jumping in on we're aggregating our numbers, gradually as we enter into the show, and I can help you by holding the stage.
Everybody needs to hit that thumbs up now.
Yes. I mean, I'm counting on our man Aristides just kind of, basically hold the stage till I get in the fucking mood. That's really what I meant to say by bringing up mood. I'll be there soon enough, but yeah, definitely need you to hold the stage in the beginning. I'll start, of course, tonight with a bit of news you brought us in the Infinite Call about, Trump's backup plan.
Oh man,
that'll be a good segue.
I mean, can it be any more just clown world?
Obvious, yes. So that being said,
okay, you're gonna bring that up.
All right. Yeah. I'll credit you with bringing it up, but I'll definitely address it. There's not much to say about it other than the obvious, but it is.
Right. All right, everyone needs to hit the thumbs up, vote, like, whatever you want to call it. But you need to hit it right away, every time, as soon as you get here. Not just to show your support, but to show the algorithm that it needs to prioritize or rank the content accordingly, and that affects how it appears or the likelihood to appear in search results and suggested content areas, etc. And that affects Douglas's ability to find and maintain his listenership, and therefore his contributions, financial contributions he gets, which he needs. And this is all important because there are those sad individuals who hit the down vote or employ bots to do so because they have some kind of grudge or something, and that skews the algorithm down right away. So we need a bunch of good, solid bunch of upvotes right away. And so please, of course, do that. Don't wait for us to say so. Although, you know, if you bring up the program and you see this scary face staring at you, you might be kind of put off. It might be, you know, just kind of put off for a minute and lose your concentration to hit that upvote. But I'm sure Douglas will explain. There's nothing to be scared about.
That's right.
There and hit that upvote. So
what is it the angels would say? Be not afraid.
Yes, yeah,
because they look so fucking scary. Because they look so fucking scary.
Yeah, right. The real angels. Yeah.
Yes.
The biblical ones, not the the children's book ones.
Yes.
So yep. So yeah, hit that upvote if you are having issues doing that or you can't. It's probably because you're not signed into YouTube. You do have to be signed into YouTube to do YouTube things. And unfortunately, it's fortunate though, because it does keep some kind of checks and balances on how people can ruin your day. So yeah, you want to be signed in. So do that. If you've done that before, do it now. If not, the easy way to be signed in is to use a Gmail account. Some people don't want to use Gmail. They have more complaints about how they are tracking this, controlling that. Well, they all do that. It doesn't matter which tech company or thing traces back to. They're all doing it. Even if you want to make a Gmail just for this, you don't have to tell anybody, the email or use it for anything else. You could do that. But a lot of people have one anyway. So I'm sure you can make an account on YouTube with other types of email. You could try that if you like. At any rate, get an account, get logged in on it, and you can do the upvoting and other things. And what is cool is once you're signed in, you can control that through a little account thing up in the corner. You make an avatar there. You have your initials on it. If you click that, where it says switch account, you can actually sign in from different accounts. So a lot of people have more than one Gmail or whatnot. And the cool thing there is each one can do its own separate upvoting to help the issues that we described. So yeah, you can vote more than once in the Douglas Dietrich democracy here.
Yes.
And yeah, and where you get something for your votes actually, and you get more for the more votes.
That's right.
Bit effort.
Yeah, unlike American so-called democracy, where your votes come completely canceled out by the Electoral College.
Yeah, and by a guy that is the best contender for Prime Minister of Israel. So. Yeah. So okay, so you can have multiple accounts, switch between them there in the account menu. The cool thing is also underneath any account, you don't just have an account and then publish stuff on YouTube. People create channels to do that. So you can actually create a channel and you don't have to publish anything. You can just leave it blank. But each channel is its own identity, has its own name. It's not directly referred to your login name. And those can do their own upvoting as well. Even on one account, you can do multiple upvotes if you don't want to have multiple. So with a little bit of work, if you go in there and hit that switch account thing in the settings menu, you can handle all that there. So I've just put a second one, and you can do that as well. So while you're in there, make sure a little bit farther down, restricted mode is off. That if it is on, then it stops that account, your account, from being able to see or hear age restricted content, and that can happen by an automatic screening by YouTube. If for no other reason, that can happen. So you want to be able to get all the programs, all the information. Tell your friends if they're having any issues. Assuming you're not a child, or that at least you're operating, at least you could be called practically called an adult for all intents and purposes, right? Or charge it as an adult, as they do sometimes. I don't know, right? Yeah.
Well, children at heart, yes, that's
Yeah, right.
it
Yeah.
is what it
Right.
is.
It is, but right. I mean, in other words, if you can have the an adult type of agency, if you will, meaning ability to if you're 17 and you're that's okay, I think.
Yes.
If you're mature for your age.
Yeah. People are mature for their age at 16, but yeah, 14,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
but anyhow, but let's not get too wild with it.
They are, and then they aren't. It's like, right. Some ways they just never grow up these days.
Yes. I don't think
Anyway,
most people
so
ever do. Yeah, emotionally, most
right.
people never do. Yeah.
Well, that's a complicated issue. But make sure if you are here that age the restricted mode is off. Whoever you are. Okay, so that being said, votes being handled or handled. Like, subscribe. Let's get to subscribe. If you see a button there right under the window that says subscribe, you want to hit that for sure. If you don't see one, it is likely because you are subscribed and have in the past, and you know that. Although you should occasionally check that, because it is known in many cases that people become unsubscribed from the channel.
Yeah. You will be unsubscribed. You will be unsubscribed.
Just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. So you want to check that. We would hope if they did that, they would do you the courtesy of putting the button back under the window that you want to subscribe again, but maybe not. So to check that, you want to go to the main channel page. Don't click on it right now, but Doug's name there in blue there to the left. If you click on that, again, don't click on it and leave. If you know how to open another window on your device, or if you want to just check it later on, if you go there to the main channel page, it will say definitively subscribed or not, either way, right there at the top. And then either there or at the program window, you see the little bell icon. That's the notification bell. You want to click that and then select all. And what that does is will, in every case, there's a new transmission, and we'll put a little pop-up in your device. Very handy. So you don't have to do anything, go search for any favorites. And also, I think, is a good reminder that you are still subscribed. Let's hope. If you're getting them, that's a good sign. So that is your lifeline, your pulse there, your twice weekly pulse.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll call it your San Francisco pulse. So that weird Montauk pulse that Peter Moon was pushing.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about publication. So, right. Well, transmission, not publication. So, So do all that. Turn on the notification bell. Make sure you're subscribed. Check out the main channel page when we're not live there, and make sure you're subscribed. Look at catch up on your remedial content if you like, and to help get your background if you haven't gotten a whole lot of it. Different categories there. Home is just the way they self-organize. Videos live is these live streams. Videos is non-live streams, and maybe much older live streams. Although there's a lot of good stuff there going back years. You might want to click on that. Scroll all the way down for some of your refresher training. That's it. Or introduction, or whatever you will, background. A lot of the issues that are often referred to here are covered there. So don't just wait. It's sometimes it's like it's tough to wait a couple more days for a new program. So you can there's always something there for you to go back and listen to. You could it's just no limit, to the votes you can place, and the
That's
shows
right.
you can listen to, and the knowledge you can gain, and so forth. Right. So anyway, what else we do there? That's about it for the channel page. Okay, so like, subscribe. What else? Share. Okay, share.
Yes.
You definitely want to do that. There's a button right underneath Windows Share. I think you want to hit that. Generates a link to share the program. It's essentially the same link as it's in the browser bar, but YouTube will feel you pressing that, and it will just up that algorithm a little bit more. And so that's the way to go there. Grab that link from that thing there. You hit the share button, and then actually share it. So
Cool.
anywhere appropriate or somewhat borderline appropriate or inappropriate that if you're not going to return, as long as it won't hurt your social standing in any great way or your income. But, we all lose friends at some point for some reason, and it's probably for the better because you make new ones right here. Yeah. So yeah, share that link anywhere, everywhere, chats, emails, print out a QR code. There's free apps to do that everywhere online, whatnot. Print that out using company resources of someone else, 100 copies, and tape them up wherever you go. Make paper airplanes and send them out the window of the high rise. They'll find where they need to go. So
Yes.
or whatever you do. What else did we come up with before? I don't know. It was a good one last time. I forget it. I don't know.
Well, I forgot, but we always tell people to write in
Yeah.
public restrooms. Of course, that's a good.
Oh, of course, that
go-to.
goes without saying. Yeah, go to your busiest train station or bus interchange and go into the restroom and tape it up there. And try to include maybe some of the artwork, whatever. Doug has great artwork or photography on every time. So maybe include that and some sort of tantalizing phrase. It's up to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah, do share the link far and wide and often, or even the link just to the main channel. It doesn't have to be to this specific program. Could be to the main channel itself. That's always a option. So what else? How can they share? Tell your friends. Talk about it. Tell them you learn so much here, and you can't believe it.
There's so much that's killing you. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is unbelievable how much you learn here.
You can't keep it to yourself. You can't keep it to yourself. It's driving
you hardly. It's just so.
It's so stressful.
It's just so. Well, I mean, it's just all the knowledge that's now brimming, out of your head. You're gonna have to share it, and make room for more. So, right?
Yes, of course.
Course. Sorry, I got up here to go grab something before I burnt my toast.
No worries. We're all family here. We're all just we're here physically. We're here physically. That's it. Yeah. We show up. All
right. You show up, and within somewhat time in the first hour, we kind of become fully awake and alive.
Or we simulate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's that. So like, share, subscribe. Covered all that. What else? And contribute. Yeah. So we talk about last but not least how to contribute. The best way is PayPal, and the best way to do that is to find Douglas's PayPal. We will put the link here in the chat for convenience, but you don't ever need the link because if you just look right there on every time on the image, he's got words.
A lot of words.
Words are the name of the program, and the PayPal where you can contribute. Douglas D. Dietrich. You don't have to worry about the exact web link nomenclature, paypal.me. Here's a paypal.com. It doesn't matter. Just go to your search engine in your browser, type PayPal, get the PayPal, type Douglas D. Dietrich. If you don't have a link handy, get to his profile and send him all the money in your PayPal account. You'll get more.
Right.
All the money, or if not all the money, then every time, either all of it or some of it every time, and through a regular recurring donation, or what do they call it? Recurring payment, which can be set up
auto
payment through PayPal can be set up very easily also. So I think every time you send a payment, it has a little box. Do you want to make this a recurring payment? And naturally, you need to check yes.
Yes.
So PayPal, the best is the best way at the Douglas D. Dietrich. That is one of his two PayPal accounts, his personal one. And if you want to contribute, you don't have a PayPal or want to get one, or don't like that company, okay, you can still send a payment through PayPal. Not have an account. Unfortunately, it's the easy way, but you can go to the website, douglasdietrich.com, also listed right there on the image, but we can also put the link. And there, if you go there, once you get there, you can go to find the yellow button, upper right-hand corner that says donate, and click on that. And there, and ignore the one in the middle. It doesn't work anyway. Click on the yellow button. It says donate. Get to a little menu with 3 options. One of them, donate with debit or credit card, and it will let you do that without being signed in. You just have to have the card. So most people have a card, some type. We don't care if it's yours. We assume that if you're using it, it is implied that you have permission to do so if it is not your card. So, and depending there, feel free to let loose and really, really bump that number up, punch it through. Doug needs the support. This is his income, his job, his legal, rightful job. He's a working disabled person, but he doesn't just kick back and collect disability. He's still working, for the benefit of humanity and society here, and at a grand salary or wage of 0 plus tips. So that is your contributions. But he needs these to have any quality of life or decent things to eat or drink that are not poisonous, such as the water that flows out of his pipes, and decent things to eat.
Yes.
I'm sure. I don't know. I mean, how are they doing these days? The Meals on Wheels. Is it like it's cafeteria grade?
It is what it is. It is what it is. There's kind of.
Yeah. Right.
It's like I will neither confirm nor deny that. It is what it is.
Yeah. Right.
What can you say? It's filler food.
A guy deserves something more than that sometimes.
Thank you. It's
a nice pizza and a few beers. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Seriously. Yeah. We all need that sometimes. So.
Well, actually, real meat, for instance. The Meals on Wheels is going more and more vegetarian because they spend less and less money on meat. Most of the meat that they serve is processed, highly processed meat. Chicken cubes, salmon is highly processed in a patty. It's just something you eat when
mechanically separated meat product.
Yes, yes, and there's still bone, and there's still bone.
And there's still bone.
Yeah, but it is what it is. I mean, you get what you pay for, and that's. But however, I need money to pay for real food.
Yes.
And at times, and just
Sure do.
Thank you.
And many things, and many, decent drinks, mineral water, because minerals are important, and as is non-poisonous water. So yes, please understand the importance of contributing. And as we said, you can go to the website, to that yellow button, do that with a card without being signed in. With Venmo, there's a button if you prefer to use that or have money in that and not in a PayPal, you could send it over there. They do connect with each other. I believe you can also go into Venmo and then find something to press there to look up PayPal accounts to send money to. So they do talk to each other now. If you have other things such as Cash App, or there's just several others, they're not directly linked. We don't have a go-to for that, but if that is the only way, I guess it could be discussed to kind of relay that. Either say so in the live chat, or send Douglas an email. We'll get to that. Third button there says donate with PayPal again, but this is to his commercial account where there's a little bit of tax taken out. So if you do have an account, we suggest using the first one, Douglas D. Dietrich. So there you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
And if you don't want to use a card and you don't have PayPal, you're a bit off the grid and you want to send money in the mail, that's certainly an option, or a check, money order, preferably, or a personal check, yours or someone else's. Again, we assume that it is implied that you have permission to use it. And we're not asking questions. And the more digits, the more zeros you put there after the number, the less questions we ask. So check. You can send these things in the mail. We'll put his email because it's suggested if you're going to send something in the mail to send him an email to let him know it's on its way so he doesn't miss it. We would hate for you to send something and have him miss it. So email him and he'll give you his address to send it to. And if it's got to be cash, please don't just put it loose in an easily torn envelope. Please seal it up good and like a card inside a card or something like that, inside of a rigid envelope where you can't tell what it is, and then descent it and spray it with some perfume to throw the dogs off. Because these days,
two thick pieces of cardboard. Two thick pieces of cardboard. Tape it within that. But go on. Yes.
Yeah, because these days they're probably more worried about money than they are drugs. So they probably retrained all the dogs. They don't care if you're on drugs, but they care if you are sending money that they don't know about, and they might take it from you. So. Right? They want every transaction to be monitored, registered on the blockchain. That is if what's his name, Larry Fink, gets his way. But we're not going down on the blockchain like that. We're gonna go out fighting. So send however you can, or in a care package. You can tuck that money away in a care package. Doug likes those. Any goodies, snacks, other things. I don't know. What do you need? You can say what might be helpful. Okay, we'll let you get to that. I can only speculate what you might like to get. Now you're kind of past electric blanket season. But care package, snacks, other I don't know, anything that a person would use to live. How about that?
Yes.
Right. I don't know. I'm sure you use other things.
Yes.
We'll let you describe that. But he likes care packages. Just put money in there. Get him. It's email Douglas Dietrich@gmail.com, and that's DUANE. And I'll give you his address. So there you go. And if that doesn't do, any of that doesn't do, like I said, if you have another payment service you want to use, that like Cash App or something, I guess have to email him. We'll figure something out. Someone to relay the payment accordingly. Especially if it's large, don't be like, "Hey man, I got like $7 in my Cash App. Can I send it?" Be like, "No, we don't." No offense, but being that it will take extra legwork. Just wait till you have more. And say, "Man, I got thousands in my Cash App, and I just don't know what to do." Then for sure, get in touch.
Yes, by all means. That's Not many words in the summary of the show today.
Okay.
It's literally just the title. There's no footnotes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
yeah,
Well, I mean, did you use all 100 characters though?
I think so. I think they're pretty damn
Yeah, it looks
close.
like it.
Yeah,
Looks like it. Well, there's only 100 characters in the title
yeah,
available, but
yeah.
and there's always more to say, even if less sometimes than others.
Mhm,
Click the show description below where it says "See More,"
mhm,
um, and click that and
mhm.
read what is there. Sometimes there are individual footnotes and subtopics there. So please check that out for all the events and dates, holidays, whatever calendrical occurrences. Doug,
Yes.
Doug wants to acknowledge, socio-political issues,
Yes.
various cultural acknowledgments in different languages. There's always at least 3 or 4 languages there, even in the description. So you get your multicultural training credit just from reading that. Tell your boss that you're exempt from multicultural, DEI and all this training, because they don't say why the hell that's bullshit. Nobody's exempt to me. Yes, I am, because I listened to Douglas Dietrich and then send him the link. Right?
There we
And
are.
yeah,
At which point you have to
yeah,
clear out your desk. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
All right, yeah, at least have some empty boxes, in your car, ready to go. But that'll just give you more time to listen. No, don't, kidding. Pretty
Oh,
much.
yes.
But you could tell people that it is definitely a cultural education
Yes.
just to be here.
So, as always, your dulcet tones have beautifully carried us into the bottom half of the opening hour. I think that what I'll do right now is just dive right into monologue. Keep
Okay.
it up until I run out of breath, and hopefully by that point, people interject and we have a bit of a roundtable. There's really not too much planned for tonight. It's a midweek Wednesday night. Historically, it's the eve day of what became known as White Night in San Francisco. We're getting some wonderful input from Realtek is sending us a link, and I believe that we're joined by one of the wonderful young ladies who usually takes part in the chat room. So kisses to her. And aside from that, there were some hints there with some of the emojis that were coming out. There's buttons they can press that send up little hearts and all that. So I see them while I'm on screen. If I happen to be looking into the chat at that time. And I know for a fact a lot of people send these and I miss them all the time. So my apologies when they're not acknowledged. That being said, let's see the latest link sent by Realtek into, yes, here we are. Trump jokes about running for Israeli prime minister. He joked that he could run for Israeli prime minister after claiming that he enjoys 99% support in Israel. And all of that is actually quite true. He is the best president that Israel has ever had. He's the most popular. His popularity far exceeds that of Netanyahu in Israel. Because, of course, familiarity breeds contempt. And to the Israelis, he's, an American criminal, which means he's like gullible and pliable. Whereas, of course, Netanyahu's too much of a cunning snake, a pure reptilian to be manipulated by your average Israeli. So they look on Netanyahu as more of a threat to themselves in a personal sense. But all of that having been articulated, basically Trump has suggested he's interested in his master's job. The 79-year-old Trump is threatening to run a second country after the fall of America. President Donald Trump says he wants to seize power in Israel, bragging, "I'm right now at 99% in Israel." So today, the 79-year-old president was speaking to the press at Joint Base Andrews ahead of his departure for Connecticut for a Coast Guard graduation ceremony when he gushed about his own approval ratings in Israel. To quote his T, I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister. So maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I had a poll this morning. I'm 99%. So that's good. Now, it's not clear which poll Trump was referring to. His 99% claim beats his home numbers, where his polling has plunged into a death spiral. The New York Times Siena poll finding Trump at his lowest level yet, with his approval rating sitting at just 37%. The war in Iran is concluded to be one of the key drivers, the Dietrich drivers, if you will, as in Die Deutschen Sprech for Meister Schlüssel, or what would be anglicized as master key drivers of the Trump downturn. In order to become Prime Minister of Israel, however, you have to be a member of the Knesset, the nation's parliament. Of course, it's not really a nation, it's an occupational apartheid state, meaning it's in occupation of indigenous territory known as Palestine. Now, in order to be elected to the Knesset in that apartheid state in occupation of Palestine, you have to be an Israeli national. The Israeli Citizenship Law of 1952 and the Law of Return grant Jewish people the right, without restriction, to move to and settle in Israel. Now, back on the American home front, the message of Manzanar is slowly being silenced. Now, one of the things, since we didn't have the opportunity to take the lads to Japan for the Yakuza Festival, the Three Shrine Festival, which is essentially the Japanese Mafia Festival, we instead visited Manzanar. And back on the American home front, America's concentration camps are slowly being scrubbed. California's Route 395 is an underappreciated state treasure of our Golden State nation. I highly recommend everyone drive that course. It's bordered on both sides by towering mountains and measured not by mile markers, but by roadside destinations. A fresh jerky store, the portal to the highest peak in the lower 48 states, a Dutch-style bakery, and a popular ski resort plopped on top of an active volcano, no less. You don't get that anywhere else other than in California that I know of. Well, among 395's do not miss destinations is the Manzanar National Historic Site. That's a former 814-acre Japanese incarceration camp just outside the tiny town of Independence. The United States government converted the abandoned town of Manzanar at the start of World War II into a camp to incarcerate more than 10,000 Japanese Americans and Japanese immigrants. After the preemptive Japanese strategic surgical strike on Pearl Harbor, they were deemed a threat to the war effort. Without due process, everyone of Japanese ancestry on the West Coast was forced to abandon their homes completely, not even allowed to sell them at an astronomical loss, simply abandon them. Farms and businesses as well, all before being put in concentration camps like Manzanar. The collection of ramshackle buildings, rusty pipes, barren foundations, guard towers, and a weathered cemetery. They tell a dark chapter in our nation's history, one that would have gotten far darker had the Japanese not won the war. So we stopped at Manzanar because I had read that the Trump and maladministration had directed the National Park Service to scrub signs and displays at national parks and historic sites of anything that might be considered too negative about America's past. But can you even begin to whitewash the message of Manzanar? As we walked through the camp's rough-hewn barracks and read the displays, I noticed no attempt to rewrite Manzanar's appalling story. To confirm what I was seeing, I called Bruce Embry, the co-chair of the Manzanar Committee, a nonprofit that was formed in part to establish the site as a historic landmark. Embry agreed with my assessment, saying there's nothing specific that I've noticed that's been altered. But he said something new has been added at the visitor center, a sign emblazoned with a QR code and a message demanding visitors an executive order to any United States citizen to report any signs or other information that are negative about past or living Americans. Well, whether or not they can find any maniacal finks to rat out such freedom of speech, they are reducing access to the camps. Embry pointing out another change that has stifled the impact of the site. The visitor center now it opens only 4 days a week. As recently as 2022, it was open 7 days a week. The National Park Service confirmed in an email that the park's content had not changed and that visitor center hours were cut in March of 2024 during the Biden misadministration to best balance staff and other park needs. Dennis Arguelles, the Southern California director for the National Parks Conservation Association, agreed that the cuts to the operating hours mean the public will be missing an opportunity to hear the story of Manzanar. And statistics bear that unfortunate fact out, according to the National Park Service data. Manzanar drew 93,854 visitors in 2024. That's down about 11% from the 105,416 visitors before the operating hours were shortened. A sad trend, to be sure, but Arguelles predicts an even bleaker future for that site. The Trump maladministration's budget for 2027 calls for a nearly 100% cut to park spending. Those cuts will probably mean eliminating interpretive programs for school children, like mine own, and, in Arguelles' own words, a backlog of maintenance that hasn't been done. But ordinary people sometimes have great victories. For Embry, the cuts at Manzanar are personal. His mother, Sue Kunitomi Embry, was sent to Manzanar in 1942 at the age of 19, along with her mother and 6 siblings. Years after Manzanar and 9 other concentration camps were closed, Sue Embry led an effort to have it declared a historic site. She also took part in annual pilgrimages to the camp to bring attention to what took place on that flat, desolate patch of land. Bruce Embry attended the latest pilgrimage in April and spraketh to nearly 1,500 people about Manzanar and his mother, who passed away 20 years ago, then telling the crowd, "The founders of our committee, including my mother, Sue Kunitomi Embry, knew Manzanar could be transformed from a site of oppression into a beacon for democracy. Today, Manzanar can prove that ordinary people can win great victories despite great odds." Well, the reason I bring up that message is because it's twofold. By the way, Vicki Johnson has joined us in the chat saying, "Hello, Douglas." Allow me to respond to her with all my adoration. All my adoration. Okay, add Vicki Johnson now. And as I said, glad she's able to join us because tonight might not be a very long night. We'll go into, kind of a spontaneous monologue and just basically articulate very important points that need to be made. And once we have delivered our message, we'll kind of decide where to go from there. Roundtable, if anyone has joined us. We also are checking now for a hearts back to you, honey. Mwah, hearts and kisses. Now, we are also going to check the latest message from Real Tech Geek. who sent another, "Oh, damn, man, we got Trump running for Israeli Prime Minister before Grand Theft Auto 6. This timeline sucks. Laugh out loud." That's actually very funny. Yeah, that's become a running joke is we get everything before GTA 6. GTA 6 is spending an eternity coming out, and well, all I can say is hopefully for all the gamers out there, it better be fucking worth it. And all right, so such having been articulated, back to the task at hand. What is the message of Manzanar? The message of Manzanar is, well, you'll figure it out yourself soon enough. When I talk about ordinary people winning victories, great victories, against great odds, think about the fact that you're facing them now, because the bottom 60% of Americans barely matter to the economy anymore. America's economy is increasingly being powered by a tiny, wealthy elite, while ordinary workers become less economically relevant than ever before. The top 10% of households now account for roughly half, 50 fucking percent, half 100% of all consumer spending, while the bottom 60% collectively contribute less than 20%. At the same time, asset markets, AI investment, and luxury spending continue booming, even as millions struggle with debt, stagnant wages, housing costs, and job insecurity. Now, any breakdown that I've been reviewing recently explores how our economy has devolved into what analysts are now calling a plutonomy. Pluto being the god, most fittingly, of the underworld and of wealth. Money and the fucking underworld. What could go together more fittingly? In other words, we're in the United States of hell, and our economy is, for the rich, the ultra wealthy have money to spend, and their spending is what's upholding our economy at all. Without their spending at this point, we're all going to crash. This is why economic growth no longer guarantees prosperity for average people. And rising inequality is creating a system where ordinary workers simply stop mattering to the market altogether. Now, our man, Brendan Zogan, says, your creative liberty is getting lame as fuck. But he's found a real Japanese store and got himself some Dango. He says, I was going to take the boys to Japan, but we settled for an internment camp. Come on! Dude, do you know how much it costs? Not that it's my money, mind you. But look, there's limits to even what Sugar Daddy's going to write off, all right? I wish, I could go to Japan. But yeah, so far that hasn't ever been budgeted. So yes, that's where we went. Remember, my responsibility is to educate them in civics, not take them to a good time. But all that being articulated. Oh, yes. So Vicky Johnson says, oh my God. Yes, thank you, Vicky. Yes, that's the only response to that level of criticism. Honestly. But nevertheless, here we go. Here's my response. Love you, honey. Okay, so that having been related, we've got global energy shocks. The conflict has severely disrupted Middle East energy supplies, sending global oil and LNG, liquefied natural gas prices surging and hitting American consumers hard at the gas pump. We got trade instability, the maladministration's near universal tariffs and aggressive trade investigations against Dietrich, that's die German speak for Meisterschlüssel, the master key allies, having choked global supply chains and hindered exports. And we have contradictory strategies. While the United States incurs massive direct costs to fund the overseas conflict and domestic economic pain ensues, the broader geopolitical situation has been conspired to enable rogue states like the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire to profit from higher oil prices. Trump's war is destroying the global economy. And we can only pray that spiraling financial chaos might be the only thing that can force the president to pull back from this conflict. Now, Donald Trump's war against Iran is already turning out to be a military, diplomatic, environmental, and humanitarian disaster. But none of this seems to matter to the president himself, who has been remarkably complacent and dishonest about the crises he himself has caused. On the first Sunday of this month, in a video about the death of American soldiers, Trump said, "And sadly, there will likely be more deaths before it ends. That's the way it is. Likely be more." I believe that was the first Sunday of the month of March, maybe. But it all begins to bleed together for me. If anything, he said it more than once. And asked if Iran could possibly retaliate with attacks on American soil, Trump said, "I guess. Like I said, some people will die. When you go to war, some people will die." That's an actual quote. And when asked about the bombing of a primary school in Minab that killed at least 165 people, mostly children, Trump simply lied, saying, "That was done by Iran." In fact, all available evidence overwhelmingly points to American guilt in that mass sacrificial atrocity. By the way, we got a nice meme here from Brendan Zoget, always darkest before the dawn, and he shows up as the dawn. That's very clever. And all that having been, brought to our attention. As a narcissistic authoritarian, Trump is naturally indifferent to the human costs of war, nor does he show any concern for how his reckless aggression is alienating American imperial allies in region and around the world. As Iran has proven surprisingly resilient in hitting back at United States military bases and allies, Trump has thrown out any regard for the rules of war, with horrific strikes on oil depots, making the air above Tehran and other cities literally unbreathable. Trump is literally creating a volatile, toxic chemical weapon by bombing in-area sites and creating a chemical warfare attack, thus generating a chemical warfare attack on civilian populations. But if human misery has no effect on Trump, the economic shock caused by his war is another matter. Not because Trump cares about the suffering caused by a sputtering economy, but because he now understands that economic chaos is a political problem for himself. In the past, Trump has shown that while he is happy to ignore Congress or other outside critics, he pays attention to the stock market. It was a steep market correction in the spring of 2025 that first convinced Trump to temper his initial aggressive push for steep tariffs. By the way, our dear friend Brendan says, "That was on Marketplace?" And he says, "I don't agree. He is a hero." Of course, he's adding this for comic relief. Do understand that. He's being facetious. Well, the White House has good reason to worry now. On Sunday, as dated the 3rd of, was it this month or was it back in March? I remember the price of crude oil surging to $110 a barrel before it went down slightly. Now, this was nearly 0.5% higher than it was before the war. Analyzing this surge and the sharp fall in stock market futures around the globe, the Wall Street Journal argued that the war is unleashing the most severe energy crises since the 1970s and threatening the global economy. Well, this is why, in typical Trump fashion, the president has been trying to wave away the economic impact of his war. In a Truth Social post that Sunday of the first weekend of the month, he tried to sound blasé about rising oil prices, writing, "Short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace." And then all in the uppercase, so brace your ears here. "Only fools would think differently. President DJT." It's not hard to read this as a case of whistling past the graveyard. Trump knows very well that one of the major reasons he won the 2024 election is that Joe Biden's presidency had been derailed by a cost of living crisis, sparked in large part by Russia's invasion of the Ukraine in 2022. Now, on Thursday, as dated, was it around the 7th of that month, I believe it was in March, Politico reported, White House aides and cabinet officials are coming under intense pressure to reverse the spike in energy prices caused by the start of the war in the Middle East. Now, that combination over the first full weekend of the third month of this year of a steep rise in oil prices and a tumble in stock market futures vindicates the warnings made, well, on Friday into that very weekend by Saad el-Kaabi, Qatar's energy minister, speaking to the Financial Times on Friday into that weekend. Kaabi said, This will bring down the economies of the world. If this war continues for a few weeks, GDP growth around the world will be impacted. Everybody's energy price is going to be higher. There will be shortages of some products, and there will be a chain reaction of factories that cannot supply. Now, to be sure, Kaabi is not speaking as a disinterested observer. Qatar, like other Gulf state American imperial allies, is extremely vulnerable to the current conflict. Iran, with its still considerable stocks of drones and missiles, is more than capable of hitting the oil refineries and desalination plants of neighboring countries. Those attacks could easily bring these countries to their knees and perhaps make them uninhabitable, literally uninhabitable, for many residents. Aside from oil, nations such as Dubai rely heavily on tourism as a source of income and guest workers as a source of labor. Now that these places have been turned into war zones, tourists and workers are fleeing en masse with no likelihood of any quick return. But the very fact that the oil-rich monarchies are fragile also means they are likely to be pressure points that might force Trump to change his mouth policy. Indeed, that is the very reason Iran has been attacking them. With typical braggadocio, Trump has boasted that he's convinced the Gulf states, he claims he's convinced the Gulf states to invest trillions in our American economy. And like so much of what Trump says, these claims have no basis in reality whatsoever. What is more real is that the personal coffers of Trump and his family crime dynasty have been enriched to the tune of billions by Gulf state money. So what would happen if Gulf state money suddenly started to move away from these United States? According to the Financial Times, and here I read therefrom, pressure on the Gulf states' budgets could cause them to review their overseas investments and future commitments as they consider options to ease the financial strain caused by the Judeo-American war against Iran. They use the term U.S.-Israeli war, when Israelis should be at the forefront and it's satrap United States as the suffix. A Gulf official saying it could have an impact on anything from investment pledges to foreign states or companies, sports sponsorships, contracts with businesses and investors, or sales of holdings. An advisor to a Gulf government said the prospect of an investment review by the wealthy states had caught the White House's attention. They manage some of the world's largest and most active sovereign wealth funds, and Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar yesteryear pledged to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in these United States, well, into America, after President Donald Trump visited that region. The noteworthy phrase being caught the White House's attention. The whole point of advertising this possible shift in investment funds is to scare Donald Trump. Now, the best case scenario for ending the war quickly is that Trump is spooked enough by bad economic news to change course. Even then, it will be difficult to find any easy off-ramp. The Iranian government, having twice been humiliated by Trump's attacking them during ongoing negotiations, is clearly not in the mood for any ceasefire. Rather, it seems eager to inflict as much damage as possible in order to restore respect for its deterrence capability. Trump has created a global catastrophe, and it's not clear that he will ever be able to end this mess. The fear of losing money is a powerful incentive, but perhaps not enough to lead the United States of America to climb out of the quagmire created by Trump's imperial hubris. Even before February 28th, the reasons for Donald Trump's imploding approval ratings were abundantly clear. Untrammeled corruption and personal enrichment to the tune of billions of dollars during an affordability crisis, a foreign policy guided only by his own derelict sense of immorality, and the deployment of a murderous, I would say exterminatory, a mass murderous campaign of occupation, detention, and mass deportation on American streets. Now, an undeclared, unauthorized, unpopular, and unconstitutional war of aggression against Iran has spread like wildfire through the region and into Europe. A new forever war, with an ever-increasing likelihood of American troops on the ground, may very well be upon us. As we've seen over and over, this maladministration abuses lies, misdirection, and attempts to flood the zone with shit to justify its abuses of power at home and abroad. Just as Trump, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth offer erratic and contradictory rationales for the attacks on Iran, the maladministration is also spreading the lie that the upcoming midterm elections are under threat from non-citizens on voter rolls. When these lies go unchecked, they become the bases for further authoritarian encroachment and war. And the Trump takeover is almost done. Are we almost at the point of no return? Let America be America again, please, in a post-Donald Trump world. Rebuilding our institutions, arts, and trust in government is not a sure thing, to say the least. Given a global economic, environmental, or medical crisis, the endeavor could cross country boundaries. As the natural historian David Attenborough said, in An International Ambition for Survival. But on the first day of President Trump's second midterm, he ruined hundreds of thousands of lives by making Elon Musk cancel all foreign aid and then fire much of the federal career workforce. He also mass pardoned 1,600 violent rioters who stormed our Capitol on January 6th of 2021 in his name to overturn our legal government. in an act of treasonous insurrection, for which Donald Trump should have been summarily executed in any sane universe. Now it seems he nurses a vein of vengeance toward anyone who's not a multi-billionaire or a devout MAGA follower, a MAGA cultist. Now, 12 Republicans, Senator Bill Cassidy and the Representative Thomas Massie, they defied Trump and they just lost and learned the hard way. To wit, Trump frankly answered a question on whether he worries about pocketbook gas and grocery issues in his deals and travels. Trump said, "Not even a little bit." He denounced his concerns about affordability and climate catastrophe as hoaxes. Now, before I look at, yes. Yeah, Real Tech and Brendan are going back and forth. And he says, "Damn, dude, already on monologue." Well, yeah, it's a Wednesday night, and we're just here. So unless we're joined by somebody who wants to come in and say something, then monologue it's going to be. Now, this presidential plot goes beyond the Project 2025 blueprint, and it bleeds into the wee hours, when Trump insults former presidents in foul language. Trump's new ploy to create a $1.776 billion fund, a slush fund for his January 6th rioters and other violent cultists, is a ready-made way to summon a paramilitary force. That may seem far-fetched, but he knows the people he mass pardoned have a thirst for violence at his command. If there is political violence in the 2026 midterms, well, Kash Patel's FBI will most certainly be in on it, orchestrating the junta in America. The ruthless man in the White House has utterly changed our nation's character and reputation. Remember, Trump had 4 years to plan revenge for his 2020 loss and pick all the right people for his cabinet. The health secretary, Bobby Kennedy Jr., crusades against vaccines, the greatest advance in human medical history. Perplexing, isn't it? Until you realize Trump really doesn't care about lost lives or medical research. The brash Pentagon chief, Pete Hegseth, is a man without a plan for Iran. But Trump's surprise war on Iran has one reason, and Jeffrey Epstein is its name. How cleverly he shifted the focus of the national conversation. TV generals and anchors talk about military logistics stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. So much for Trump's blatant violation of the Constitution in ignoring Congress, starting a war of choice, and murdering the Iranian leader. Back in Washington, Trump's personal construction, destruction, and dumping ground, his state of mind is heartbreaking to witness. It plays out in real life, in shambolic zones for his larger-than-life triumphal arch, a 250 statue garden of heroes, and the active White House site for a billion-dollar ballroom. Lovely green spaces and squares are crying out for help. The sightlines between Arlington National Cemetery and the Lincoln Memorial are sacred and intentional for our nation's meaning, not to be destroyed by a massive self-congratulatory arch. A citizen campaign is taking place. Volunteer rats are snapping photos of museum exhibits to see if they change to conform to Trump's executive order to cut out the dark corners of our history. Last weekend, Trump appropriated the entire National Mall for a Christian Rite Day of prayer for thousands to descend on the people's shared secular space. Police choked all roads and bridges around it. Trump himself did not attend. He would burst into flames. Church and state are meant to be separate. The founders so declared. For what it's fucking worth. It's amazing what Trump thinks he can get away with. And then he does. Why? He goes further than any president ever dreamed. To remake the Capitol in his own image. Democrats in the congressional minority feel little to no leverage over Trump. And they're right. There's no stopping him now, except a prayer for the November election. Trump treats them like one of his destruction zones. In fact, he barely consults with Republican Senate leader John Toone. King George III of England suffered mental illness and had to be replaced by his son, the Prince Regent, in 1811. This line associated with him still echoes. A traitor is everyone who does not agree with me. This is the lesson America must learn, but won't. Whiteness always amounts to a pay cut. That should have been the conclusion from data released last week, showing that inflation is so high that it wiped out wage gains over 3 years. A majority picked Donald Trump because he said implementing tariffs and mass deporting illegals would make whiteness great again. However, the result of those policies, in addition to his war against Iran, has been inflation climbing to nearly twice the target rate. Conservative economists expect it to reach 4% next month and stay there for the rest of the year. Again, the lesson should be clear. If you choose whiteness, you choose to cut your own pay and the pay of everyone who did not choose whiteness. But that won't be the lesson most people draw, especially Democrats who are courting disillusioned Trump cultists. They won't believe whiteness backfired because they believe that's not supposed to happen. In America, whiteness, or proximity to whiteness, often yields real material results. Some deny that reality, but we all know it's true. Kamala Harris was right. Tariffs are taxes. Deporting, well, particularly mass deporting migrants, is inflationary. And Trump was vulnerable to foreign entanglements. However, it didn't matter. And not only because it was a black woman warning us, a Blasian, as a matter of fact, a black Asian. It didn't matter because the very idea of whiteness as wealth is deeply ingrained in the American psyche. Ironically, it's thanks in part to Joe Biden that the idea of making whiteness great again had mass appeal after 2020. The Democratic president and his party grew the economy from the bottom up and middle out. Wages rose. Unemployment fell. The policies of multiracial democracy put the government on the side of workers and consumers. That resulted in black prosperity, as well as in prosperity for non-whites generally. And there's your problem. If whiteness is wealth, blackness is theft. When some white people saw black people doing well, they thought they were witnessing a crime. Trump's re-election restored their idea of justice. But now those very same people are very, very confused. Instead of the restoration of glory, as advertised by the Trump campaign, gas prices are soaring, groceries are extortionate, health insurance is completely out of reach, and everyone is getting a pay cut, even as jobs are getting scarce. the president returned to their proper places the virtue of whiteness and the vice of blackness. But it's not working. Something is seriously wrong. Somebody do something! Whiteness has led the American economy to ruin every 4 to 8 years for the last half a hundred years. If there's a Republican president, expect a crisis. Yet most political commentators won't put whiteness at the center of their thinking. It's as if doing so would violate a kind of unwritten agreement to believe collectively that everyone wants equality, no one has bad intentions, and anti-black prejudice is a thing of the past. It's punditry that treats white people as if they were children who can't handle the truth about themselves or their country. A minority of Democrats choose to play along with the myth of the people as pure and innocent. Playing along is less risky than taking the responsibility of slapping these voters into adulthood for their own goddamn good. But the make-believe can run so thick that some Democrats make a serious mistake. They convince themselves that Trump cultists, who are angry about whiteness backfiring upon them, are going to open to Democrats. Fact is, they think Democrats stand for blackness. These voters will most certainly stick to the devil they know, as white as he be. Their expressions of anger are not any sign of openness. It just means they're mad, in every sense of the word. I may sound hopeless, but I'm not. Though their dream turned into a nightmare, they won't give up upon it. However, they might stay home. Liberals and Democrats should spend less time asking themselves how to appeal to disillusioned Trump voters with this or that economic policy. They should spend more time asking themselves how to deepen the disillusionment. They are not going to trade whiteness for prosperity because, to them, whiteness is prosperity. That whiteness ruins prosperity does not change the fact that they want it both ways. They cannot not want both, even though they have never had both. Yet liberals and Democrats keep trying to change their minds. We should use their minds against them. Let me put it like this. Whiteness is a drug. Only the addict can choose to be free thereof. That doesn't mean everyone else in our political community doesn't have choices. It just means we should be careful with the choices that we have. Among Democrats, the current trend is to accuse Donald Trump of breaking his promise to America. However, that doesn't help break the addiction. It only affirms it. It suggests that if Trump were a better president, the whiteness he promised on the campaign trail would have increased pay. We must never enable addiction. We must treat each other like adults. Whiteness has never increased pay, but multiracial democracy has. If adults cannot handle that truth, they must be encouraged to stay home and not vote. Because now the grand scale of Trump's insanity has been laid bare as the Strait of Hormuz is slipping out of control. Iran has escalated tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, firing on multiple commercial vessels and seizing 2 ships. The incident commenced during a fragile ceasefire and ongoing United States naval blockade. One of the world's most critical shipping routes is now under renewed pressure. Donald Trump himself may be having buyer's remorse over the Iran war. American fuel prices are near an all-time high. His approval ratings are at an all-time low. and oil tankers remain stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to tip the global economy into recession. Trump is not good at taking responsibility. The buck stops with everybody else. In his version of Harry Truman's motto, the buck stops here, which Truman had on a sign on his desk at the Oval Office, in the Oval Office, upon the resolute desk. For once, however, Trump has a point. He has every right to be angry with the man who sold him the war. Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Last month, the New York Times reconstructed the crucial meeting at which Trump accepted Netanyahu's case for bombing. It took place at the long table in the White House Situation Room, both men flanked by their top advisors, with the Times reporting Netanyahu delivered his presentation in a confident monotone. He told Trump that Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks, and the regime would be so weakened it could not choke off the vital Strait of Hormuz. Iran would be unable to land serious blows against American imperial interests and allies in neighboring countries. Netanyahu also said, and this may have been the clincher, that bombing would free Iran's opposition groups to overthrow the regime. This week, Robert Gates, a grande of America's defense establishment as Secretary of Defense under Republican and Democratic presidents, George W. Bush and Barack Obama, delivered a withering assessment of Netanyahu's pitch. Interviewed by CBS, he said that Netanyahu had told him in July of 2009 all the same things he had told Trump in the Situation Room in February. Gates said he had pushed back during that no-punches-pulled discussion of Iran, telling Netanyahu he was underestimating the resilience of the Iranian regime. To quote his he was saying in 2009, the regime is fragile, it'll crumble at the first attack, and they won't have time to do anything else. I told him then he was dead wrong. Netanyahu has almost comically been warning that Iran is weeks or months away from getting a nuclear bomb for decades. 1992, in a Knesset speech. Within 3 to 5 years, we can assume that Iran will become autonomous in its ability to develop and produce a nuclear bomb. 1995, in his book titled Fighting Terrorism. Iran is 3 to 5 years at most from a nuclear weapon. 1996, to the joint session of the United States Congress. The deadline for Iran attaining this goal is extremely close. 2002, to a United States Congressional Committee. Iran is racing for the bomb, but Saddam might get there first. 2009, Iran has the capability now to make one bomb. They could make several bombs in a year or two. 2010, to the Atlantic magazine. You don't want the messianic apocalyptic cult controlling atomic bombs? That's what is happening in Iran. No, Bibi, that's what's happening in Israel. 2012, Iran is a few months away from nuclear capability. 2012, to the United Nations General Assembly, the cartoon bomb speech. Iran will soon be a few months, possibly a few weeks, from getting enough enriched uranium for their first bomb. 2015, Iran would be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. If Barack Obama's nuclear deal went through, which it did, And we still don't see no mushroom clouds. 2025, a decade later. Iran could build a weapon in a matter of months, or even weeks. Now, bear in mind, I've been quoting Bibi this entire time. Netanyahu persuaded Trump to bomb Iran the first time around almost a year ago, in June of 2025. He was quoted then as saying, "Look, Donald, this has to be tackled because they're racing forward. You can't have a nuclear Iran on your watch." In making these overconfident predictions, was Netanyahu simply passing on the assessments of his country's intelligence services? Not necessarily. In 2011, the year of my late and sainted Cyrus's, my womb matron's, my mother's murder, on his final day as Mossad chief, Meir Dagan told the Knesset committee that Iran will not have nuclear capability before 2015. In 2012, a leaked intelligence assessment said that Mossad believed Iran was still not performing the activity necessary to produce any nuclear weapons. This was while Netanyahu was claiming an Iranian bomb, an Iranobomb, was at most but months away. Trump did not have to take Netanyahu's word for this. His own intelligence services contradicted the alarming claims. Before last year's bombing, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, told a Senate committee that the United States intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building any nuclear weapon, and the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has never authorized the nuclear weapons program he himself suspended in 2003. At the time, Trump declared, "I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one." This March, when Gabbard reported that Iran had never rebuilt enrichment since yesteryear's bombing, Trump simply said, "She's wrong." You know, it really is a mystery how Gabbard remains in her job. In the account we have of the crucial Situation Room meeting, there were supporters of the attack on Iran among Trump's inner circle, but only there. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, was reportedly the most enthusiastic. Later, he was quoted as saying, "We're gonna have to take care of the Iranians eventually, so we might as well do it now." Trump's special envoy and Gulf buddy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, also pushed to join the Israeli attack. The CIA director, John Ratcliffe, on the other hand, dismissed Netanyahu's arguments as farcical. The Secretary of State and interim National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, called them bullshit. So Trump had ample grounds to decide not to bomb Iran. The former Fox News host, Tucker Carlson, has been a regular visitor to the White House, despite being a critic of the war. He told Lulu Garcia Navarro's New York Times podcast on the eve of Operation Epic Fury, Trump didn't seem enthusiastic at all. There was no effort to say, once we do this, the United States will be at peace, will be safe, will be more prosperous. There was none of that. Zero. Netanyahu, he concluded, had a strange hold over Trump. Well, yeah, he's his handler. On one of Carlson's visits, Trump told him, "It's going to be okay." Carlson asked, "How do you know?" Trump replied, "Because it always is." As with every other important decision in his life and his presidency, Trump is simply winging it. Carlson said he warned Trump that a war with Iran would destroy his presidency. If it does, he has only himself to blame. on election night in 2024. He said critics had accused him of wanting to start a war. Trump said, "I'm not going to start wars. I'm going to stop wars." But as Peter Bergen wrote in his book titled Trump and His Generals, Trump was constantly asking for military options to attack Iran during his first midterm. He came close several times back then. So far, in less than 18 months of his second midterm, Trump has bombed not only Iran, but also Yemen, Somalia, Nigeria, and Venezuela. He has threatened to attack Cuba, Panama, Greenland, and even Canada. Though Netanyahu may have manipulated Trump, he was only feeding Trump's deepest desires. Whatever regrets he might have, Trump owns this war. And that brings us to what you need to know today. NATO is stirring over Iran because the energy crisis is raising the stakes under the shadow of an unbeatable Red China. Now, the full list of humiliations Europe has endured since Donald Trump returned to the White House makes for grim reviewing. But Washington's adversarial approach to our allies undermines our own power base. Because now the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is said to be discussing the possibility of helping ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz if the waterway isn't fully reopened by early July. The idea has support from several members of NATO, but doesn't yet have the necessary unanimous approval. It's unclear exactly how NATO countries could guarantee safe passage for commercial vessels through the strait. An American attempt to do so was halted within days, and Iran has obviously fired on ships in the area in recent weeks. Such a maneuver by the defensive alliance would represent a shift in strategy toward the war. Thus far, NATO members have insisted they would only be involved in the strait once fighting had stopped, and they can form a broad coalition that includes many non-NATO nation states. But the deepening energy crises, triggered by the Israeli and vassal American decision to start the war, has many nations rethinking their strategy. President Donald Trump, who has struggled to persuade Tehran to agree to his terms to end the conflict, has repeatedly issued threats to resume American bombing. He made a new one yesterday. Meanwhile, NATO's chief rival is holding major nuclear combat exercises as the Kremlin monomania autocrat Vladimir Putin makes a rare trip out of the country. He headed to Beijing for talks with the communist Chinese dictator Xi Jinping. The Russian Defense Ministry has stated that Russia's 3 days of drills will involve more than 64,000 troops, 200 missile launchers, 140 aircraft, 73 surface ships, and 13 submarines, without specifying the number of missile launches it has planned. The exercise comes as Ukraine, which has been under Russian invasion for 12 years, increases the number of long-range strikes into the Russian Federation itself. A winning strategy that they're never looking back from. Now Beijing is the global focal point, as the rogue Russian Empire pins all its hopes on the Xi-Putin summit. Regardless, Zhonghua and Russia's partnership is not one of equals. The communist Chinese dictator Xi Jinping is getting the guest room ready again. After the Sino-Slav synaxial puppet President Donald Trump's snooze fest of a surrender in Beijing last week, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin will follow in his footsteps come the morning with a 12-day trip to the corpo collectivist Chinese capital. Beijing and Moscow's energy relationship only deepened yesteryear when the Russian Federation announced that it would greatly increase its gas pipeline exports to People's China. Since Putin's full-scale invasion of the Ukraine in 2022, Hongzhonghua, Red China, has purchased roughly $370 billion worth of Russian fossil fuels, more than any other nation-state on Earth. The Iran war has brought the Russian and Communist Chinese empires closer still, but this is not any partnership of equals. Putin is angling for a second gas pipeline from Siberia to Zhongguadalu, mainland China. Meanwhile, Beijing has many alternatives to Russian energy if the price isn't right. There is also a fundamental difference in Weltanschauung, or worldview, between Beijing and Moscow. Like the Russian and American empires, the Communist Chinese empire wants to increase its own power and decrease that of its competitors. But it would be a mistake to think that Communist corporate China shares these states' desires or would even tolerate a world divided into sphères of influence. The centralized single-party state capitalist China now aims for nothing less than world domination. Because America has long since lost its leverage over the People's Republic of China. As Zhongguo Renmin Gonghe Guan, the People's Republic of China is becoming the gravitational center of global diplomacy. Xi and Trump have cemented Beijing's advantage for years to come. The past year of Sino-American relations has been extraordinary and head-spinning. In the spring of 2025, the American president Donald Trump imposed a de facto trade embargo on the Communist Chinese Empire of the East, a measure swiftly reciprocated by Beijing. Months later, he was touting a G2 partnership between the two empires. In recent weeks, Trump has both invited Chi-Com warships to the Strait of Hormuz and threatened to strike Red China-bound oil tankers passing therethrough. But the world's most important bilateral relationship has also changed in more consequential and persistent ways. The monolithic Communist Chinese superstate has quietly established authority over whether and how the United States will implement national security measures such as export controls. Stylistic changes in how the United States conducts diplomacy with Communist China on the Asian mainland have allowed Beijing to gain the upper hand in pushing for high-stakes policy concessions. And Washington has separated its diplomacy with Beijing from efforts to compete for influence globally, resulting in a deprioritization of critical strategic issues, and thus enabling the Communist Chinese Empire to weaponize the appearance of Sino-American rapprochement. These subtle changes in Sino-American relations will only constrain decision-making in Washington for years to come. When Trump met with Xi in Beijing this week, the two tyrants were already unlikely to ever achieve any major policy breakthroughs. But I would say that instead, they reinforced a new set of implicit rules and assumptions for managing relations that ultimately favor market socialist model China, which will only embolden Beijing to test American resolve on my Taiwan, the protection of cutting-edge technology, and other vital interests. And this, in turn, will only complicate Washington's ability to preserve the bilateral stability it has gone to such great lengths to secure. It's really all about Beijing's new veto. Zhongguo Renmin Gonghe Guan, the People's Republic of China, emerged from the 2025 trade war in a position of relative strength. As tensions escalated in early 2025, strategists in Beijing argued that disruptions would hurt Communist capitalist China, but they would hurt the United States even more. As predicted after Beijing blocked exports of key Dietrich the Deutschen Sprach for Meisterschlüssel, anglicized as master key, rare earths, and critical minerals, threatening the viability of American manufacturing. The Trump maladministration quickly sought an off-ramp from the trade war it had launched. Chi-Com officials saw their assumptions vindicated. Their confidence soared. An earlier wariness of Trump's unpredictability gave way to near certainty that Beijing could manipulate his maladministration with ease. Communist Chinese officials concluded that they could negotiate with the United States on equal footing, and that, if anything, Hong Zhonghua, Red China, held the stronger hand. In the aftermath of the trade war, both sides refocused on the ostensibly technical task of unwinding the most damaging retaliatory measures they had imposed. The United States shelved structural concerns regarding Zhonghua Dalu, mainland China's non-market policies and resulting trade imbalances that the tariffs were originally meant to address. But the final arrangements, endorsed by Xi and his puppet Trump in October of 2025 at their summit in Busan, South Korea, still revealed significant changes to the character of Sino-American relations. The centralized, single-party state capitalist China paused its most sweeping controls on rare earths and critical minerals. In exchange, Washington ceded to Beijing an effective veto over whether and how the United States would, or even could, protect itself from certain national security threats, effectively surrendering to Communist China unconditionally. As part of this deal, the United States withdrew a new regulation that would have applied export controls to the subsidiaries of entities that had already been sanctioned, closing a loophole that was abused to circumvent the ban on advanced semiconductor sales to the Communist Chinese super surveillance state. In one fell swoop, Beijing had asserted total authority over the degree to which the United States would or could enforce all of its existing national security measures that drew on export controls, whether they targeted market Leninist China or not. Additionally, the United States agreed to forego new export controls that specifically targeted Communist corporate Chinese entities. Such a trade would have been unthinkable a year earlier. The first Trump maladministration and the Biden misadministration had used export controls to address a wide range of challenges, including the Communist Chinese military's weaponization of American technology, Beijing's instigation of and support for the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire's war in Ukraine, and human rights abuses in Tartarasia, Xinjiang, Nigeria, most properly and historically East Turkestan. These measures prevented the Communist Chinese super surveillance state from easily drawing on United States capabilities to undermine American interests and values. The second Trump maladministration quietly set this tool aside in a conspired act of covert treason. Effectively, we are under occupation from the Communist Chinese. They run Zoom. All of your information is fed back to their super surveillance state, and a social credit account is being drawn up on you using everything you expose on TikTok, as well as Zoom. Our friend Realtek, he's a clientele of TikTok dancers in Communist China, the only people in China who knew Trump had even visited. All that information is taken down on a social credit score, and when the Chi-Coms invade, you'll be judged as to whether you live or die on the basis of everything you've said and done on Zoom and TikTok, which are Chinese communist venues of communication. Your days are fucking numbered. The American and Communist Chinese empires routinely discuss national security concerns, but in the past, how Washington addressed those concerns was never up for negotiation. The United States might ultimately decide not to act on a particular threat, but neither side would have expected Communist China to hold explicit authority over how American officials would or even could proceed. Now Beijing gets to vote with greater authoritative impact than the SCOTUS, the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of these United States. To some observers, this represents a diplomatic breakthrough, similar to the nuclear arms control negotiations of the Third World War in effect, so grossly misnomered as the Cold War. After the American and Communist Chinese empires teetered on the edge of mutually assured economic destruction, the two sides successfully pulled back from the brink. The Busan deal, however, lacks the symmetry of the 20th century disarmament treaties, in which identical military capabilities were subject to reciprocal restraint. Instead, the Communist Chinese Empire withdrew but one singular weapon, its most severe restrictions on rare earth exports, in exchange for the United States of America refraining from export controls in all domains, including technology, cybersecurity, and non-proliferation. The imbalance in this arrangement has only strengthened the monolithic Communist Chinese superstate's overall position within the highly imbalanced bilateral relationship. And because it is explicitly linked to the Communist Chinese super surveillance state's chokehold over rare earths, which the United States will need for quite some time, current and future American policymakers will find it impossible to reestablish a more favorable foundation for Sino-American stability. In America, it's all been optics over substance. Preparations for the latest summit between the two empires' dictators betrayed further important changes in Sino-American relations. In the lead-up to bilateral summits, both sides have always cared a great deal about the meeting's pageantry and symbolism, as well as its substantive agenda. But in the past, CHICOM diplomats were generally more focused on atmosphere, while American officials prioritized more specific policy objectives. These differences facilitated successful negotiations by allowing both sides to offer concessions on how meetings would be structured without compromising on their foremost goals, their top objectives, if you will. The United States might be able to offer a gesture of respect, a longer or more elaborate meal, for example, to unlock Commu-Chinese support for a more concrete policy change, such as enhanced military-to-military communication. Now these roles have been completely reversed. Washington must always deliver on Trump's overriding desire for visibly warm ties with Xi Jinping. In response, Beijing sees a unique opportunity to draw from the American imperial playbook, trading optics for substance in pursuit of concessions on its first and foremost strategic priority, My Taiwan. CHICOM officials will most certainly presented Trump with an elaborate display of pomp and circumstance, but they fully expected him to return the favor in his policy agenda by relenting American support for My Taiwan. Ahead of prior summits, the United States often divided its priorities into areas of potential cooperation, such as contra-narcotics and people-to-people ties, and areas of difference, such as My Taiwan and the war in Ukraine. This gave structure to a sprawling bilateral agenda. Areas of cooperation merited negotiation, whereas areas of difference required discussion. The objective in the first instance was to establish a common program of action. In the second, Washington sought to address misunderstandings and clarify red lines, thereby reinforcing deterrence and reducing the risk of inadvertent conflict. Washington generally preferred to address each topic as a standalone issue. The monolithic communist Chinese superstate took a different approach. Its diplomats worked aggressively to link areas of cooperation and areas of difference, arguing that progress on any particular issue would be unsustainable in the absence of broader momentum and trust. China views cooperation as leverage. Exemple gratiae. It argues that the two sides cannot make progress on stopping the flow of fentanyl precursors while remaining far apart on my Taiwan. In other words, linking two completely different subjects that reside in different dimensions, different universes, on different planets in different universes, and saying that they're intimately connected in order to get the Americans to surrender everything in both cases. In 2022, Beijing demonstrated with unusual clarity that, its view that cooperation is something to be earned through unconditional surrender. In response to then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to my Taiwan that summer, Beijing suspended cooperation on a wide range of unrelated issues, including contra-narcotics, flooding America with fentanyl precursors, climate catastrophe, immigration, and military communication, cutting off the red phone and the red line connecting the phone from American military command to that of Communist China. In other words, you didn't know when they would launch, and they weren't going to even bother to try and prevent a preemptive strike with even an attempt to communicate. This time, the United States is trying to link disparate components of the bilateral agenda in service of Beijing. Everything is negotiable, including matters of national security. As a Manchurian candidate turned president, Trump has been programmed not to see any meaningful distinction between areas of cooperation and areas of difference. By all evidence, he believes that all problems can be resolved through his personal engagement with Xi. Accordingly, Washington has submitted strategic concessions on issues that will define Sino-American competition for decades, such as my Taiwan status and technology protections, in exchange for peripheral quick wins, such as Communist corporate Chinese purchases of soybeans or airplanes, neither of which will make a dent in our recession. This dynamic has been reinforced by the United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's de facto role as chief diplomat for the Sino-American relationship. In the past, primary responsibility for bilateral symmetry most often rested with the National Security Advisor, or Secretary of State. These officials prioritized national security issues and were generally wary of pursuing economic goals at the expense of the United States' strategic position. Over the years, these officials have sometimes prioritized stability over actions that would address the threats posed by Beijing, avoiding confrontational measures that could complicate Sino-American diplomacy. But even then, their sense of what mattered in Sino-American relations favored the strategic agenda. Bessent's Chinese counterpart is the Vice Premier He Lifeng, whose responsibilities are also predominantly economic. The super surveillant Communist Chinese Party state, however, has an exceptional ability to enforce message discipline across all its cadres, and there be no doubt that he is prepared to press for wins on strategic matters alongside economic ones. This imbalance has left the United States vulnerable to emerging from this latest and future summits with bad deals. This is all about separate tracks. Because in another significant change, it be self-evident that Washington no longer sees Sino-American diplomacy as a part of its competition with Beijing for global influence. Previously, United States officials engaged Beijing to communicate with CHICOM officials, but also as a form of alliance management. Diplomacy with the Communist Chinese Empire was intended to reinforce American imperial ties with partners while countering Communist Chinese efforts to weaken them. Exempli gratiae. In meetings with Hong Zhonghua, Red China, prior American administrations would raise concerns regarding Beijing's aggression in the East China Sea. They did this to deter further coercion against the Imperial Japanese corporate shogunal superstate, but perhaps more importantly, Washington could report to Dai Nippon Teikoku, the Empire of Greater Japan, thereafterward, that it had raised the issue. This reassured allies that Washington valued them enough to carry their priorities to Beijing. At the same time, Washington used the content and pace of Sino-American diplomacy to reassure imperial partners that the United States would not recklessly escalate tensions with Communist China on the Asian mainland, nor would it reconcile irresponsibly with Beijing. This message was vital for building trust with partners that feared, on the one hand, Sino-American tensions spilling into conflict, and on the other, Washington and Beijing cutting a deal at the other nation-states' expense. Obviously, countries in Asia do not want the Communist Chinese Empire to escalate tensions over my Taiwan to the point that conflict becometh ever more likely. But even more so, they do not want the United States to reach any deal with Zhonghua Renmin Gonghe, the People's Republic of China, that would allow the mainland to more easily establish control of the Zhongguo Island China, which would pave the way for Chinese communist dominance of the entire Eastern Hemisphere and a Marxist Leninist chokehold over all third-party nation-states' freedom of action. Now the United States has jettisoned these global considerations, preferring to manage each of its relationships as separate affairs. Exempli gratiae. Even as the Trump maladministration has invested tremendous resources into strengthening maritime cooperation with the Philippines, it has de-emphasized concerns regarding Red China's aggression in the South China Sea in its high-level agenda with Beijing. Previously, Washington could have sought a mutually reinforcing coherence in its engagement with our allies and Communist China on the Asian mainland. Now those relationships are managed on entirely separate tracks. Notably, Trump's latest trip to Beijing was the first by any American president since 1998 to include only meetings with Communist Chinese Party counterparts to Red Republican princelings, eschewing the traditional practice of traveling to allied countries as part of the same trip, or, in the case of multilateral summits, engaging allies while in Zhongguo, mainland China itself. The monolithic Communist Chinese superstate, meanwhile, has skillfully wielded the appearance of rapprochement with these United States as a major tool in its own global efforts to expand CHICOM influence and erode trust in the American empire. This helps explain why the centralized single-party state capitalist China placed such an importance on persuading Trump to offer rhetorical concessions on my Taiwan at the latest summit, encouraging him to state that the United States opposes Taiwan independence, in contrast to the long-standing American imperial position of not supporting that outcome, and that he endorsed unification in some form. It is unlikely that Communist Chinese officials believe that this language alone will have an enduring effect on American security assistance to my Taiwan. Nonetheless, it undermines the Taiwanese people's faith in our United States, weakens the standing of politicians in my Taiwan who advocate closer ties with Washington, and possibly prompts other regional players, such as Dainihon, Greater Japan, and the Philippines, to soften their own policies in support of my Taiwan. While the American empire deprioritizes the international implications of its diplomacy with Communist capitalist China, Beijing is weaponizing the appearance of Sino-American rapprochement to cast doubt on whether American imperial allies can even ever rely on Washington to defend them, at the expense of stability in the all-consuming Sino-American relationship. Or should I say, effective Communist-Chinese occupation of these United States. It's an unenviable choice we're all presented with. All these structural and stylistic changes in Sino-American relations have granted Beijing ever more power within the relationship. Yet at the same time, Washington's misactions are not always aligned with its accommodationist messaging toward Beijing. Even as the Trump maladministration celebrates a G2 partnership with the Communist Chinese Empire of the East and suggests that my Taiwan's arms sales are open for negotiation, in flagrant violation of President Ronald Reagan's 6 assurances to my Taiwan, no less, United States military activity around my Taiwan and the South China Sea remained strong until last week's appeasement. In 2025 and 2026, the United States carried out a program of multilateral military drills and freedom of navigation operations in the Western Pacific. This month, it concluded the largest ever joint military exercise with the Philippines, concentrated in northern Luzon, just south of my Taiwan, and a western island adjacent to the South China Sea. The United States military has till now continued to send ships and aerocraft through the black ditch of the Taiwan Strait. And in December, the Trump maladministration originally approved an $11 billion arms sales package for my Taiwan. Some would argue that this state of affairs reflects a clever strategy of speaking softly while carrying a big stick. But the United States is not speaking softly in its diplomacy with Beijing, and its stick is simply being jacked and stroked to, well, basically emphasize its flaccidity. Instead, the United States of America is explicitly communicating abject surrender on Dietrich, again, Die Deutschen sprechen, the German speak, literally Meisterschlüssel, anglicized as master key, strategic matters, notwithstanding the operational continuity that has in many cases characterized the American imperial approach to these same issues. This divergence between word and deed only raises the risks of misunderstanding, miscalculation, and unintended escalation. People's China is not seeking near-term military conflict with its neighbors or these United States, but its increasingly elaborate military exercises around my Taiwan will easily cause an accident that leads to escalation. The recent CHICOM Coast Guard's attacks on Philippine mariners in the South China Sea could all too easily have inadvertently triggered United States alliance commitments, yet leading to a great power confrontation. Now that Washington is explicitly signaling to Beijing a complete and total lack of interest in supporting our regional allies, while in practice continuing to support them, the odds that Beijing will misread Washington's intentions and underestimate American imperial resolve are even greater than in the past. As Beijing feels increasingly confident in its position within the Sino-American relationship, it will only be emboldened to more aggressively assert itself in the Indo-Pacific. This would force the United States to make an unenviable choice: push back, potentially sacrificing bilateral stability and risking conflict, or look the other way, allowing vital American imperial interests to erode. Because there be no good answer, the United States must strive to avoid a scenario in which it is forced to choose. This requires Washington to send clearer signals of strength, focus, and enduring commitment to our own security and that of our allies. Should Trump continue to communicate that he prizes quick wins and his relationship with Xi above deeper American interests, the United States will find itself sans any capacity to guide the relationship on our own terms. Instead, Trump has turned NATO into a tool of coercion. Europeans have had to swallow a number of bitter pills from the United States since President Donald Trump returned to the White House. They haven't done so out of deference, respect, or even fear. They've done it thinking it would help them buy time and preserve their security while they built better capabilities independently of these United States. But the delusion that they have the agency to change a fundamental pillar of Trump's Weltanschauung worldview, that Europeans are free riders and alliances are dead weight, is crashing against a reality that is exceeding the most pessimistic scenarios imagined by policy planners. What Trump is now doing is more pernicious and dangerous for Europe than full American withdrawal from or dormant participation in NATO. Both scenarios would at the very least have had the advantage of clarity. Instead, Trump has transformed the alliance from an instrument of deterrence against the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire into an instrument of coercion against Europe itself. The Trump maladministration has become masterful at abusing Europeans' need to keep the United States within NATO against them, while espousing a collaborationist approach with Moscow. At a time when the United States and its transatlantic allies no longer share the same view of the Russian Empire's threat, and when there are increasing reasons to doubt the bedrock of values that previously bound them together, this extractive transactionalism is dangerously fraying a tenet of international security that managed to survive 8 decades of ups and downs. To make matters worse, by neither withdrawing nor suspending its participation in the alliance, Washington is enabling immobilism by those Europeans who still refuse to accept the changing nature of American imperial commitment to the suprapeninsular subcontinent's security. This dynamic was immediately posited by the Trump maladministration. A month after the November 2024 presidential election, as president-elect, Trump threatened the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Canada, a NATO ally. 12 months into his second midterm, in February of 2025, the president and his vice president, J.D. Vance, blew up at the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, in the Oval Office, the incident triggering months of high-stakes walking on eggshells by the leaders of Italia, the United Kingdom, Die Neue Deutschland, the New United Germany, and La Cinquième République Française, the Fifth French Republic, in addition to the NATO Secretary General, all to preserve whatever they could of the military aid the United States was providing for Ukraine, which had already started diminishing in the last year of Joe Biden's misadministration. Need to respond to a graphics interchange format there. Get to real text links eventually. Barely 12 months later, along came Trump's so-called Liberation Day, announcing sweeping tariffs and opening another chapter of the Whatever It Takes playbook. That culminated in July of 2025, the Turnberry deal between the European Union and these United States, in which Brussels deliberately underplayed its hand in the one field where it could stand up to Washington. Meanwhile, the June of 2025 NATO summit in Prague had only one purpose: making the president feel like he extracted historic commitments from his allies. But it is 2026 that has been the most deleterious. In January, in a push to annex Greenland, the autonomous territory of our steadfast ally Denmark, the White House said Trump was discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And, of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. And by May, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and Trump announced they would be withdrawing 5,000 troops from Die Neuwerdende Deutschland, the new United Germany in the rounded German, as opposed to the Austrian dialect of my biological father, which was immediately translated into canceling the deployment of 4,000 troops to Poland on a pre-planned rotation that had already started. This wasn't part of any long-expected force posture review in concert with European allies. It was a knee-jerk reaction to the sorely needed constructive commentary as validly outspoken by der deutschen Bundeskanzler Friedrich Merz. Since his return to the White House, Trump has routinely derided NATO as an unfair organization. He has severely undermined the credibility of the alliance's collective defense promise by stating countries shouldn't own land they cannot defend, and latterly has threatened it outright, warning in an interview to the Financial Times that NATO faces a very bad future if American imperial allies fail to assist in the opening up of the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, fight in a war that the Americans fucking started. See if you can figure the logic out in that. Now, it is simply a worst-case scenario for all involved. With every new round of pressure, disparagement, and lashing out, the American empire further weakens our ability to project power and incentivizes our allies to turn away from our industries. The harm Trump has done to hardcore pro-American countries like Canada, Denmark, the United Germany, Romania, or Poland has had a chilling effect. Meanwhile, Europe is losing its most important partner, while not yet fully capable of handling matters on its own. As a result, its security hasn't been this vulnerable since the Second World War. And Europeans are not alone in this conundrum. The Judeo-American war on Iran has upended the security fundamentals of America's Arab Gulf partners as ill. All these allies and partners are now torn between needing the American empire for their security and worrying whether they can still count on our support while having to protect their security from America's destabilization. The persistent American imperial threat of military invasion against Greenland has been a turning point for even the most reluctant of allies. It has increasingly pushed Europeans to quietly quit the United States in the fields where that is possible. These adjustments are now no longer merely nice to have, they are vital. The burden shifting Trump had initially requested of our allies was essential for the long-term health of the alliance. But now Washington has now adopted such a punitive approach against the most important pillars of our own power that it is becoming our own gravest threat. Because the psychotherapist, Dr. John Gartner, is among those warning that President Donald Trump is so mentally unstable that he is issuing the chilling prediction that Donald Trump will kill more people than Hitler. His words. The POTUS, the P-O-T-U-S, that doesn't mean perfect something shit, it's the President of the United States' health, has been repeatedly called into question by critics since his return to the White House at the start of yesteryear. Trump has never shied away from saying or doing controversial things, but his detractors can only conclude that his increasingly erratic behavior, his misbehavior may be being caused by impaired mental faculties. Indeed, it has even been clinically diagnosed that Donald Trump is suffering from dementia, with the psychotherapist Dr. John Gartner, the founder of Duty to Warn, having gone on record with his professional medical opinion that Trump's decisions will kill masses of people. Duty to Warn is an organization made up of mental health professionals and laypersons who know it is their duty to warn the public when they believe danger is immediate. Not just clear and present, but emergent. And in this instance, Dr. Gartner told SiriusXM Radio that he knows Trump has dementia and that the disease is causing the deterioration of his frontal lobe. Gartner highlighting that such an individual must never have access to the American arsenal of military-grade weapons. Not altogether shockingly, he then predicted that Trump will wind up killing more people than Hitler. Dr. Gartner going on record to say, "What I want people to understand is that there's a confluence here between him losing his mind and all of us being at risk to die." The SiriusXM radio host, Dean Obadiah, asked him to elaborate on his diagnoses, to which Dr. Gartner described President Trump as maniacally, or actually the medical term he used was manically grandiose. Gartner said, and here I quote his T at length and verbatim, "I don't know if we have time to put on the show, but he posted another picture of himself as Jesus. Another one. It kind of looks like the Statue of Liberty, but he's got a crown of thorns, and it's clearly his face. And he says, 'I've suffered even more than Jesus.' So in other words, he has to be God. He has to be above everyone. He's even better. Not only is he saying, 'I'm Jesus,' he's saying, 'I'm actually better than Jesus. You know, I'm the best president. I deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. And every building should be named after me. My face should be on the $100 bill.' He posted a tweet of that." The psychotherapist also pointing out the fact that Trump has repeatedly sought to compare himself to some of the most famous military conquerors in history, with Gartner being quoted as saying, "Here's where it's apocalyptic. He's in the Atlantic magazine. They've talked about the fact that he is the most powerful man in human history, and he's comparing himself to Caesar, to Napoleon, and to Alexander the Great. Well, what do these three leaders have in common? They're worldwide military conquerors." With Dr. Gartner concluding that Trump is in command of a military arsenal 1,000 times more powerful than anything those men commanded. Okay, then, if you put two and two together, I'm predicting that Donald Trump will kill more people than Hitler. This brings us back to the message of Manzanar and the fact that 60% of the population is only 20% of our economy. The message of Manzanar is that it's waiting there for you. And in it, and places like it, Donald Trump will kill more people than my biological father Adolf Hitler ever did. He will start by putting those into camps that don't count in our ultra-wealthy economy of the elite. He will start by putting the mass protesters against his using that nuclear arsenal, not to defend America from the Sino-Slavic Synaxis, but to nuke Europe so that Russia's tanks can roll right in. Trump will nuke Europe and place Americans back in Manzanar. I really think I've delivered my message tonight. Let's take a look at some of the links sent by Real Tech Geek. He says, let's see now, NVIDIA's profit hits $58.3 billion as the AI boom gathers more steam. This is a Ponzi scheme. The chip maker said its profit in its most recent quarter jumped 211% from a year earlier thanks to extreme demand from other big technology companies. Well, that's a pile of shit waiting to crash. Then China banned NVIDIA 5090DV2 while CEO Jensen Huang was still in town. This maneuver comes as Beijing pushes its AI techno companies to use homegrown chips. Well, he says, good, China's standing up to the bully. Real Tech, please. This is a side in which this is a conflict in which you want both sides to lose, okay? I'll just put a clown emoji on that statement. Then Real Tech sent another link about a request from Pakistan. Trump says he called off new Iran attack at the request of the Gulf states. There we are. Pakistan, that's Real Tech's home country in a genealogical sense only. All I can say is all right, nice little balloon from that. And a dynamite stick for Pakistan. That's all right. Well, if our man Aristides is with us, kind sir, feel free to come off mute. Nobody joined us tonight, and I think I've delivered a message as important as can be delivered. I think that's if people don't get the direness of the situation in the time we spent with them tonight, they never will. Let's take a look at our numbers. We want everyone to rejoin us on Sunday, where I'll spend a much longer period of time, most likely, speaking of many things. And this is a night in which we're kind of expecting a quiet night, but we delivered a message tonight that is, well, as important as on any other night that I've spraketh at length. So, dear Aristides, if you'd be so kind.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here. You're calling it this early?
Yeah, for once. I feel that we, we delivered our message. Nobody joined us in roundtable, and most of the time, a lot of the show is taken by the roundtable, and usually my monologues are around this span of time. They're usually around this span of time, so usually it doesn't feel like that because the roundtables are long enough where, well, the monologue takes place in the last few hours. But this time we just kind of push that schedule up, unless somebody jumps in right now to start a roundtable. I'm more than happy to close it because I'd like to.
Heck, people.
That's okay. That's okay. Tonight was a good night for that. Tonight was a good night for that.
All right.
I wanted to go to bed early so I can take care of some stuff tomorrow. That way I can actually wake up refreshed when Meals on Wheels is delivered, and I can actually take care of some chores.
Okay, and maybe do some errands.
Yes.
Maybe spend some money. So let's get the.
Of course, it would help if I had some money to spend.
Right. Well, on that note, let's get the PayPal
By the
link
way, a
into the
shout out,
chat.
yeah, and a shout out to whoever, to my eternal shame and disgrace, I forgot who sent me this. Whoever sent me the rose tea. Someone sent me rose tea. It may have been Clarice Claudette. It may have been someone else, but I believe it was Clarice Claudette. But I had a wonderful glass jar of rose tea, which I tried for the first time tonight. Okay, because it ran out of green tea. So Real Tech says, it's too hot here in New York City. Gotta shower again. It's like, yeah, life is hard. I don't have a working shower. You've got a working fucking shower. I've got to go to the estates to handle my hygiene. You lucky boy. All right, so there we go with that.
Like shit, your shower doesn't work?
No, it never did. It's not. It's
Oh
I don't
my
have potable
God.
water, and the
Oh,
shower, even though it theoretically works, you don't want to use it because there's no hot water tank. I don't have
uh,
hot water.
oh, oh,
So I only catch my deadly cold. It
uh,
doesn't matter what season of the year it is in San Francisco, where we have a constant.
gosh.
Yeah, as what's
Uh,
his name, Mark Twain said, I spent the coldest winter of my life in San Francisco one summer. It's no summer in San Francisco. It's winter here all year round.
well, get
So
this guy some money so he can improve his standard of living.
yes, please.
At the either find the link there once again in the chat or right there on the screen, PayPal.me or whichever way you get there. Douglas D. Dietrich. Type that, search that there at PayPal. Find him, you'll see him there. You'll send him your money so we can have some kind of quality of life.
Thank you. Yeah, by all means. And so, with all of that having been articulated from our dear Aristides, we love you dearly, Aristides. Most blessed be thy dreams and sweet be thy slumber. Have yourself a wonderful evening, night at this point. Enjoy yourself on the night tide and stay safe and be well. All right.
All right.
With
You
that,
too.
kisses to all the ladies out there. Hugs to all the gentlemen. That is, of course, all who support myself. And review the episode in its entirety. Hit that upvote. Say it again, Aristides.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hit that upvote. Get the algorithm going. We need to keep that on the up and up for many reasons and all the reasons.
And leave a goddamn comment.
Leave it. Oh, I forgot to say comments. Yeah, leave the comments are enabled after the live. Comments help the algorithm and help Doug know how you're feeling. So
that's right.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, most blessed be, we'll be closing our live stream tonight. Join us on Sunday night, same Dietrich time, same Dietrich channel. Dietrich is the Teuto-Slavonic for Dragon. So same Dragon time, same Dragon channel. Be here, bring a friend, maybe even more importantly, bring an enemy. And by all means, bring a contribution. Your contributions are our salary. And with that, we're ending stream. Okay. Pressing end. And triple redundancy process. Let me shrink this.